Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am George Chapman, your moderator for today's special program. I am the past faithful navigator of the Archbishop Michael J. Curley General Assembly, 4th degree Knights of Columbus in College Park, Maryland. And I'm also the present advocate of the 3rd degree Knights of Columbus in Prince George's County in College Park, Maryland. Today's program is sponsored by the Archbishop Michael J. Curley Assembly, 4th degree Knights of Columbus in College Park, Maryland, and the St. John DeMatha Council, 3rd degree Knights of Columbus in Hyattsville, Maryland. It is indeed a great privilege and definitely a pleasure to be here today on this program and discuss the life of St. John DeMatha, who is the founder of the Order of the Most Holy Trinity. This presentation is being aired on the 800th anniversary of the approval of the Rule of Life, written by St. John DeMatha and approved by Pope Innocent III on December 17, 1198. I now am privileged to welcome to the program Father Joseph Gross, International Trinitarian History Commission. Father Joseph, what has sparkled a renewed interest in St. John DeMatha?
I think when we reflect on the past 30 years and we read once again the documents of Vatican II, we find the mandate of the Fathers of the Council telling all of the religious congregations and religious orders to look back to the source of life that they consecrate themselves to in Jesus and the Gospels, but also to the charism, to the life, to the inspiration of their founders. So since 1965 particularly, there's been a renewed interest in St. John, because once again we've adopted his rule with modern day constitutions. In addition to that, the women's congregations that are affiliated with our Trinitarian Order of Men have really blended well into what we call now the Trinitarian family, and they're coming themselves to an appreciation and a reverence and an inspiration found in John DeMatha.
Very good. Well, Father, where did John DeMatha, where did he live?
When did he live? Might start with that first.
Okay.
He lived between the middle of the 11th century, the 12th century, around 1150 he was born, and he died during the first quarter of the 12th century. So he lived a period of maybe 60 years altogether.
Is there any history of his parents and his growing up years and education?
Yeah, regarding the details of his life, his parents, his birthplace, his education, we don't really have any contemporary documents or material that speak about those matters. It's only later on, when there's an interest during the early part of the 1700s in having a complete biography of John, that all the details emerge in a literary fashion, not so much in a historical fashion. We know, obviously, that he was born because he does accomplish the foundation of the order and the expansion of the order during the early part of the 1200s, the 13th century.
Oh, I see.
But according to tradition, he was born in a place called Faucon in Provence, in the southern area of France, right below the French side of the Alps, where we have a beautiful monastery.
In France.
You're most welcome to visit.
Very good.
And as you open the shutters in the morning, the Alps rise to greet you.
Well, where and when was the Order of the Holy Trinity founded?
John founded the Trinitarians with the brothers that he assembled for the purpose of ransoming captives around the year 1193, 1194, in an area of France called Cerfois. It's about 80 kilometers or 50 miles northeast of Paris, between Paris, Meaux, and Rennes.
Well, when and from whom did the Trinitarian Order receive papal approval?
After a period of experimentation and to see what worked and what didn't work, and a writing down of some norms describing the way of life, John went to Rome to perhaps a companion of studies of his, at least a contemporary, Lothar de Segni, who in January 1198 was elected Bishop of Rome and took the name Innocent III as Pope. And so it was by Pope Innocent III on the 17th of December 1198 that the Trinitarian Order and its rule of life was approved.
Very good. Well, is there a specific rule of life for the Trinitarians?
Yeah, there is a very specific rule of life for the Trinitarians. It's so specific that anyone who professes and follows this rule of life naturally becomes a Trinitarian. And it was written for, as I find in my own study and reflection, for four purposes. The first purpose for having the rule of life is that it was a statement of common agreement among the brothers of how they would live and what they would do for God's people. The second purpose was because it involved ransoming Christian captives and local mercy works, but particularly because of the fundraising and the use of money and land economy during the period for the work. The Trinitarians didn't want to be impeded either by local bishops or by civil authorities. And so they appealed to the highest authority of Christendom, of course, the Pope, the Bishop of Rome, for approval. So the second reason for preparing and presenting a rule of life was to have papal approval that would go over any possible obstacles or boundaries that could be put in their way.
Well,
and the
Father
third
Joseph,
reason,
who authored this rule of life?
John DeMatha was one of the collaborators. But when we look at the actual text, I've always prepared a study edition with the original Latin, and the other side, on the facing page, a vernacular translation. You have a composite document in the sense that it's chronologically layered. In other words, the norms that are present, there are 40 chapters as we edit them today, were added at different times. So there is this chronological layering, just as we have in St. John's Gospel account. But the other aspect of composition and authorship deals with who contributed. John and his brothers are obviously the main contributors, but Innocent III himself contributed to the writing of the rule, as well as the Bishop of Paris and the Abbot of the Abbey of St. Victor in Paris.
Were they written in French?
No, everything in those days was written in Latin.
In Latin, I see. Very, very good, Father. My word.
Interestingly enough, up until this point, there had been only 3 rules observed by religious in the Western Church: the rule of Basil, the rule of Augustine, the rule of Benedict. And when we come to the 12th century, the 1100s, we find rules beginning to be written for ordering a way of religious life dedicated to some mission in the church. And so at the very beginning of the 12th century, beginning of the 1100s, the first rule that we have is that of the Hospitallers of St. John of God, which of course was based in Jerusalem. The next rule happens at the end of the century, and it is the Trinitarian.